you are. Oh, 1 second.
Now we start recording.
Okay, now we started recording. That's great. So, everyone knows this is Russell, Texas, Bentley, and I really wanted to connect with Russell because there's a lot of going on in his region right now, in that part of Ukraine. So, Russell, give us an update with the situation. I have some questions, but I want to hear from you what's going on there right now.
Hello, Anya. It's great to see you again, talk to you again, and all your friends. I really appreciate y'all's support and interest in what's going on here. And it's really a very, very serious situation here right now. The last few weeks has been very, very heavy, concentrated, intentional bombardment of Donetsk civilian areas. Just today, 8 civilians were killed in the city today. There was a funeral that was planned for a woman battalion commander that was killed yesterday in Gorlovka. She was a legendary, great hero of Donbass. And today they plan to have her funeral at the Donetsk Opera House. The Opera House was bombed right before the funeral. Donbass Palace Hotel, which is like where all the big shot journalists stay, was bombed today. Pushkinskaya Boulevard, which is like the, every Russian city has Pushkin Boulevard, and it's like a park and nice restaurants and, fountains and all that. And that was bombed today. 8 civilians were killed, including a child, just today. The other thing that's been going on in the last few weeks is the Ukrops have been sending over rockets with these PFM-1 petal mines. And these are small, they call them toe poppers. It's a very evil design. The Soviet Union copied the design of an American mine that was used in Vietnam and Laos back in the 70s and 60s. And it doesn't kill you, but it blows your foot off. They're made of plastic, they're small, they're very hard to detect, and little kids think that there's a toy or something. Less than 10 kilograms will set it off, and it'll blow your leg halfway to your knee off. Really, it's not designed to kill, it's designed to cripple and maim. And
Can I ask you here about this, because that was one of my questions. This looks absolutely horrific to me. So I want to know, in your area where you are, do you have a lot of those things there? Because I know there was a whole orphanage that was affected. I don't remember the name of the place, but if you can tell me how people manage this, because this is very dangerous.
Yes, it's very dangerous. At least 5 people as of today have been crippled by these mines. All civilians, including one who was a first responder, like emergency services guy that went to the place where people were saying, hey, there's a bunch of these mines, and he accidentally stepped on one too. I mean, they're very dangerous. They're hard to see, especially at night. We've had a lot of rain here the last few days, so the water has moved them around. They hang in the trees sometimes, It's a terrible situation. They've been in Petrovsky district, not far from our house. They've been in Kievsky district. They've been in Voroshilovsky, even in the center. And, we're doing our best to clean them up, but, we've cleaned up over 1,000 of them so far, but there's still a lot more of them out there.
Russell, are they still sending those, or this is it?
Well, the last time they sent them was like less than 48 hours ago. They've been sending them for a week. I don't think this will be the last time that they send them.
It's just horrific. It's horrific because this is war crime.
It is exactly a war crime. It is a persistent land anti-personnel landmine that's used in civilian areas. This is exactly a war crime. This is, I mean, there's a specific statute against doing exactly that, and the UCROPs are doing it. In fact, it's also interesting to know that, you know, these landmines were prohibited by a treaty from back in, like, I don't know, 2002 or something, and Ukraine signed an affidavit. They had like 6 million of them, and supposedly there was documented that they destroyed 300,000 of them that were, you know, confirmed.
Yeah.
And then Ukraine said, "Oh yeah, well, we destroyed the rest of them too," but obviously they didn't.
So now I want to really know your opinion about this, that Zelensky announced this mandatory evacuation of over 200,000 people. And I want to tell you, when I heard of this, I was like, they either want to traffic people, or they want to create, which is very possible, or they want to take people, recruit some people to their side, because no one wants to really go there unless they get paid, probably. I mean, I'm not saying no one, but small fraction. What do you think of this? How is this looking in your area? Like, are you part of that mandatory or
No. I mean, whatever Zelensky says has exactly zero meaning for us. I mean, we're liberated from that. Zelensky's talking about the other parts of Donetsk Oblast that are still under semi-Ukrainian control, that are soon going to be completely liberated from Ukrainian control by Russian and Donbass forces. And he's telling people, you have to leave. And I mean, and it's first of all, it's totally fake. Ukraine has nowhere near the infrastructure, the resources to move 200,000 people anywhere, not even 200,000 soldiers, you know? And so, I mean, I mean, everything that Ukraine says, just like everything that the U.S. and Western media and government say, is completely a lie. And generally, it's the exact opposite of the truth. Zelensky doesn't, I mean, you understand that less than a week ago, the Ukrainians bombed a prisoner of war camp that was full of Azov prisoners. I mean, they killed those prisoners to stop them from, or shall I say, they murdered those prisoners to stop them from confessing to the crimes that they had done on the orders of Kiev, which means on the orders of the United States. They murdered their own guys, their own soldiers, their own best soldiers that had surrendered, you know, and so they have absolutely, I mean, it's like they care as much about, because you understand that everything that's done by the Ukrainian so-called government, the Kiev regime, which is a better name for it, is done only on the orders of the United States. Only on the orders of the United States, deep state. And the deep state of the United States cares as much about the lives of Ukrainians, even those that support the United States, as, you know, somebody cares about the life of the chicken that they had for dinner last night. You know, that much, which is nothing. And they are really, literally willing to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian.
Yes, they said it many times.
And so, you know, Zelensky saying, oh, you know, we want to help 200,000 human aid, you know, to 200,000 civilians. I mean, that's, you know, it's like saying we want to give human aid. Colonel Sanders wants to give human aid to the chickens, you know. And, I mean, it's just a complete joke. Most of the people aren't going to fall for it. Probably a lot of them will be forced to do it. I mean, the human trafficking out of Ukraine is probably the highest, I mean, and I'm talking about like sexual slavery and stuff. It's the highest in the world in Ukraine right now. And I mean, it's like, I've seen some horrific evidence, real evidence of, of human trafficking that's just too horrible to even talk about, and it's like, if they can't sell you for a sex slave, then maybe we can get $50,000 for your liver and $25,000 for your kidneys, and it's like that. I mean, what they say is the opposite of the truth. There's nothing about human aid about it. Yeah. It's more cattle for the slaughterhouse.
So Russell, in your region, before we started recording, you said you think that before the end of August or before the beginning of September, it will be over in your region, right? How you feel about this? How is it there?
What's happening right now is, before the Operation Z started, there was more than 150,000 Ukrainian soldiers along the Donbass front, which is a 200-mile, 250-kilometer line in eastern Ukraine that was really right on the very edge of all the major cities of Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics. And I mean, right now, here in the center of Donetsk, where I'm sitting right now, it's less than 10 miles to Ukrainian frontline positions, and it's been that way for the last 8 years that this war has been going on. And before the Operation Z, Ukraine Army, on the instruction and with the absolute support of the U.S. and NATO, was getting ready to make a major offensive against the People's Republics here, and it was going to be straight into the cities to use the people as human shields, and to make their move before Russia came in, because Russia's main military advantages are its air power, its rocket power, and its artillery. Plus they have much better troops, but air power, rocket power, and artillery are pretty much neutralized if the enemy is hiding in amongst a bunch of your own civilians, and that was their plan. They were going to come in here like the German Nazis, blitzkrieg, and then they were going to just start genocide. They were just going to start slaughtering everyone here. And it's, the proof, and I'm sure that it's very hard to find in the West now because of all the censorship and the propaganda from the West. But the truth is that, the Ukrainian military has used human shields not as a tactic, but as a basic strategy. And so, they go into apartment buildings and they'll take the third floor when they know that there's civilians on the first and second and fourth and fifth, and so that was their plan. By stopping that attack when the Operation Z started, when Russia came in, they saved hundreds of thousands of people, of human lives that would have been just slaughtered. And they also neutralized the Donbass front. Since then, we've been working on it the last 5 months, hitting it very hard with artillery, rocket fire, air power, and it's been reduced. Now probably somewhere around 50,000 are left on the Donbass front. They're totally demoralized. We're moving forward. In the last few days, and these are very hardened, armored positions. They've had 8 years to build very solid bunkers and stuff. And in the first couple of months, we tried to move forward, and it was just impossible. Too many minefields, too many, interlocking fire. But since then, we've been smashing them with artillery and air power, ballistic missiles. And so now they're weakened enough to where we can move forward. The three main bases of Ukrainian military in the area of the city of Donetsk would be Marinka, which is about 5 kilometers from our house in Petrovsky district, which has been bombing for years. Pesky, which is like the center, and then Avdiivka, which is on the north of the city of Donetsk.
So those are like key points, right? When
yes.
And after that,
biggest, and we've smashed them so hard right now that we are now able to move forward, and we are making advances into all three of those areas, and significant advances. I predict that before the end of August, and maybe even sooner than that, the Donbass front will completely collapse. Whatever Ukrainian military is left in the area will either be captured or killed. There will be no more military power on the Donbass front. And of course, then they'll move incrementally back, and they'll be at a point where they can still shell Donetsk with long-range artillery, like these HIMARS rockets that the United States has given them.
Yeah.
But we've blown up. I think the United States has given them 16 so far, and at least 4 of them have been destroyed so far. I believe the 5th one was sold by the Ukrainian army to the Russians for $800,000, And so, and it's like a $5 million cannon, and they said, hey, well, for $800,000, we'll sell you this one with the rockets too. So as I understand it, and it's not 100% for sure, but it has been confirmed that 4 have been destroyed, and there's, from reliable sources, information that the 5th one has been sold by Ukrainian army to Russia for cash, and that's not by any means a isolated incident. Ukraine right now is the major black market weapons supplier of the world. So.
Can I ask you here on this, because I would like to hear from you. When do you think will be the moment? How far they have to be gone, or what force has to come in order for them not to use any other weapon on your region? No more of those butterfly mines, no more HIMARS shooting, none of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are untouched. What would it take?
That's going to happen when we win this war, and that'll probably be around Christmas time. Understand that, to prevent the shelling of Donetsk is not by any means a strategic imperative of this military campaign right now. Of course, everybody wants to, but you understand that, in the city of Chicago in the United States, there were probably more people murdered there than there were here today,
True.
And in the year in 2021, the year before this operation began, where it was still a war, in that year in the DPR, Donetsk People's Republic, 2.5 million citizens, 70 civilians were killed in that year. And that's by no means insignificant or anything. That's 70 innocent people that were murdered. But in the same year in Chicago, in the city of Chicago, which also has about 2.5 million people, 700 civilians were murdered. So, and look, it is an absolute tragedy. It is, heart-wrenching. It was a little kid was killed today. There was the video of the man who whose wife and granddaughter were killed, blown apart. And he was walking down the street, and I mean, there's no way to express that kind of grief. So it's horror, and it's terrible, and it's evil. But this is a war of evil against good for the future of humanity. And it has to be worked on from a strategic level. And what I think is going to happen is that we're going to crush the Donbass front, remove all military power, and that's going to be like half of all the military power of Ukraine right there. And then from there, once that's neutralized, we're heading to Odessa and we're heading to Kiev. Because we take Odessa, we cut off the sea, then Ukraine is landlocked. We take Kiev, it's like taking Berlin. And so, then we don't have to fight all the way to Kiev from the east. We just come down. Maybe Belarus will join us. From the Russian border, it's 100 miles from the Russian border to Kiev.
Yes, but Russell, have you seen this map that Medvedev posted? And
yeah.
that map was actually showing a very shrink Ukraine,
yes,
actually
exactly.
with Kiev. So
yes.
Do you really think they?
No. Understand this. We're going to take Kiev, and then we're going to give it back. But it's going to be guys from Donetsk that are going to be in the parliament and the president and the head of the police and the head of the military. The yellow and blue part on Medvedev's map is going to be completely under the protection, which means the control of Russia. So, and that's that's a very diplomatic map, but Kiev will be under the control of Russia. I guarantee it. And I really believe before the end of the year, but before the end of this operation, I guarantee Kiev will be under control of Russia like a dog on a leash.
So tell me this now. Overall now, how is the spirit of people around you? How is the morale? How they feel? Do they feel like they are close to be free? They are close to freedom?
Yes. The people, the people here can never, ever be defeated. They are fearless. We drove by where the bombing was, the bombings at the theater, at the Donbass Palace, on Pushkinskaya. We drove by there. You know what? There's still people sitting in restaurants there, they're so used to it by now, I sat, this woman, Alina Lip,
yes,
from Germany.
German journalist, yes.
Yeah. You really need to get a hold of her and do an interview with her too. But I was having dinner with her in a restaurant in the center of Donetsk, maybe, 2 weeks ago or something like that. And we were on the outdoor patio, and it was shelling.
Yeah.
Quite close. It was the kind of shelling where, there's shelling where you can hear off in the distance. And then there's the shelling where you hear the. And we were hearing the second kind.
Which is worst? It's worst, right?
Well, it means it's much closer.
It's closer.
Yeah. Within half a kilometer. And you understand.
Russell, you know this stuff. Can you tell what kind of weapon it is?
Yes. It's it's with experience. I mean, you can teach people. I mean, you know what the Doppler effect is in sound? It's like say, it's like when you pass a car on the highway and it goes
Yeah.
and it's like, and the frequency of the sound goes up as it approaches and it goes down after you pass it. And it's the same thing with an artillery shell. When you hear a shell going, you know it's not going to hit you. When you hear a shell going, then you know you're probably about to die. So it's, I mean, and you can tell not so much from the sound of it when it's flying, but from the sound of it when it hits. Just like you can tell by the crater, what caliber it is. You know what I mean? And that's how we've done the forensic investigations of every, artillery attack, of this war against civilians. I mean, you can look at a crater, and by the size of the crater, you can tell what caliber shell it was. If you know the caliber, then you know the maximum effective range, or the maximum range that shell can be shot from. And you can also look at the crater, and in almost every case, not every case, but almost every case, you can look at the shape of the crater and you can tell what direction it was shot from. So by looking at the crater, you can tell that it was shot from this direction and less than, 13, 14 kilometers away. And so then a very good estimate of where the cannon was. I mean, and it's, and you can tell the difference between, I mean, like right now in the city, our guys are working, all over the city. They're shooting back. And a lot of civilians here, they don't like that at all. They don't like it when our guys are shooting at Ukraine from someplace close to their house. I mean, in our house in Petrovsky, they shoot from some places very close to our house. And I don't really like it either. And my wife doesn't like it, Ludmila. But at the same time, what I say is they have to shoot from somewhere. And of course, where they shoot from, the UCROPs are trying to find it and then shoot back at that place. And it's very, I don't know if you might have seen the video that I posted yesterday. I was in Petrovsky and I was under some very heavy shelling. I mean, it was very close, a couple of 100 meters. And but the point is, our guys have to shoot from somewhere. They're defending all of Donbass. They're defending Russia. They're defending the future of humanity. The most dangerous place is where they are.
Yes.
So people shouldn't complain about them shooting, because they should understand is that if they weren't there shooting, if the defenders hadn't come in late February, most of us would already be dead by now.
Let me ask you here, Russell. I really would like to know this. What is the percentage of Russian soldiers who are defending that region, and what are other people or nationalities that actually are part of that defense? Because I think there is a lot of civilians as well, right? People from your region, so not only the Russian soldiers.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. No, and at the beginning of the operation, there were probably 60,000, full-time contract Donetsk People's Republic soldiers. And then, I don't know, another 30 or 40,000 in Lugansk People's Republic. Contract soldiers, guys that had been doing this for years. and it's, and I want to say something here with all respect to the Chechen Spetsnaz and the Russian soldiers that have come here, but there are no better soldiers in this whole Ukrainian war than the soldiers of the People's Republics of Donbass, because we've been doing this for 8 years. So, Russia has probably put 120,000 soldiers into Ukraine so far. There was,
and they rotate, right, Russell? They rotate.
Yeah. There was 100,000 here from the Donbass republics, Lugansk and Donetsk, before. Since the operation started, there's been a big conscription in the republics. Mm-hmm. There's, they set up and it's war, so it's a matter of survival. So young men that haven't gone down and volunteered, the military police, they set up checkpoints, and it was really strong for a while, and now it's less, but they still do it. And they set up checkpoints on the road, and they see a young man in the car. They say, "Hey, stop over here. Why are you in the army? Do you have an exemption? No? Park your car over there, call your wife or your mom or whoever, and get in the back of this truck. You're drafted." And that's war. In Ukraine right now, you understand that they're drafting women.
Yes, I saw actually the videos how they are chasing some young people, with the buildings, the young guys. This is not funny, but it's kind of funny and sad at the same time.
And you can't
running away from them.
Running because they're getting thrown into a meat grinder. They have, no chance at all of doing anything but being killed or captured. And it is the worst crime of this whole war is that it's being continued, that the United States has ordered Zelensky to continue this war that is already lost. It's like in a chess game,
Yeah, it didn't have to be this way. I agree with you. It didn't have to. No. It's just money and money and money and business and power, and that's what it is. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. So tell me one more thing, because I really want to know this. How is the restoration, rebuilding going? I saw amazing videos that construction going up, buildings built. How is it, Russell?
It's going great. Mariupol right now is like the flagship area because, that city got really smashed. Yeah. I've been there many times. It was really, a apocalyptic vision, when I the first few times I went there. But already, and I'm talking about there was no water, there was no electricity. People were, cooking on fires outside on the front of their apartments and stuff like that. If they had apartments, I think like 40 or 50% of the housing got destroyed. And this was also done intentionally, by the Ukrainian strategy of human shields and to cause as much destruction. You understand, this is the strategy. It's the United States calls the shots of the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian government. They know that Russia is going to win, that Russia is going to take control and protection of as much of Ukraine as it wants. And so they say, okay, well, if it's all going to be Russia's responsibility, let's go ahead and fuck it up as much as we can before they take it. So it's going to cost them as much. They're going to have so many more people to bury. They're going to have people who, are against them because they blame them for the war incorrectly, of course. And so they, they have a strategy of destroying as much as possible and as killing as many people as possible.
Intentionally, absolutely.
Intent.
Yes.
And so Mariupol, they did that there. And every time I went to Mariupol, I couldn't help but remember that what happened to Mariupol is exactly what the U.S. and Ukrainian Nazis were planning to do to Donetsk, my city, a week before, a week after, when the Operation Z started. They were planning to come in and do to Donetsk what happened to Mariupol. To massacre, except without human aid, without rebuilding, to just massacre as many people as possible.
So Russell, your area, the level of destruction in comparison percentage-wise, okay? How is it? You said about half of the buildings, 50% in Mariupol, let's say 40-50 was destroyed. Would you say, what is the percentage of destruction in your city?
In Donetsk, a city of about 1 million people, over the last 8 years that this war has been going on, there are certain areas very close to the front, like Visolia Village, Kievsky District, that have been, those, certain small areas, micro rayons that have, been more than 50% destroyed. But over the whole city,
yeah, I
would say that maybe 10%.
Okay.
Has been destroyed.
But still, yes. Now, last question for you, because I don't know, that is one of the things that really bothers me. Those butterfly mines, they really bother me. Just thinking about it. Is there any way, and I know this might sound crazy, but how can you protect yourself if you live in the area that is affected by it? How can you detect this? How can you protect yourself?
Well, they're very small mines. They're like
petal, like a petal.
They're like about this big, and they're. And the way you protect yourself is you walk on the street. You don't go walking through the grass. You walk on, cleared pathways. You stay on the street. If they're laying on the street, they're not difficult to see.
Okay.
But to walk through, grass that's any more than ankle high, you're taking chances on losing a leg.
Sorry to interrupt you. So if the children are playing somewhere,
that's the worst part about it. Or not only that they would step on them, but they would find one and start playing with it, Because, you've seen photos of them, they look like a toy or something.
I want to tell you something personal now. My father, who will be 90 years old this September, he was 7 years old when the Second World War has started. And right before the end of the war, he was playing somewhere, and the mine that was in the ground exploded, and he lost 4 fingers in his left hand. So he managed to live his entire life just with 1 pinky finger in his left hand. And he was the engineer. He designed part of the engine for the UNAC motorcycle. He was the main constructor for that.
Nice.
So when I hear about those mines, I'm like, my father was that child that was affected by something like this in the ground.
Yeah, it's the same thing,
So bad.
And just like the German Nazis that put that mine that hit your father, it's, American and Ukrainian and NATO Nazis that are putting the mines here now, And it's, I mean, they're already prohibited. Ukraine said that they destroyed them all, but they've proven that they lied because they're dropping them now on our city. You know, and it's, I mean, the thing is, after, I mean, there have been like 3 or 4 major instances where they, you know, they send a missile, the missile opens up in the air, these cassettes fall out, they open up in the air, and then the mines twirl down, and they're laying, you know, scattered for hundreds of meters.
Russell, we have to end because my battery is running low.
Okay.
But please, please, protection, love, and God's blessing over you and your family. And we will connect again, maybe the beginning of September. Let's see how is the situation there. You will have a great news for everyone.
I'm sure I will. I believe I will.
Be safe and just be careful there, please.
Thanks. We it's always great to see you, Anya, and thanks to you and all your friends. And we'll be in touch. Bog.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you so much.